I came home earlier than usual that day. The HVAC at the office had gone out during the afternoon, and by 3, everyone was just pretending to work. My manager told us to take off, so I did. Normally, I'd text Laura to let her know I was on my way. Not because I had to, just out of habit. But that day, I didn't. I thought it might be nice to surprise her, maybe grab dinner together before the week swallowed us whole again. That was the last time I made a move in this relationship without second-guessing myself. The moment I opened the front door, I knew something was off. It wasn't anything obvious. The house wasn't trashed, no broken vases or anything like that. But the energy was wrong. That's the only way I can describe it. Like when you walk into a room after people have been arguing. No matter how clean it looks, you can still feel it in the air. The hallway smelled different. At first, I thought maybe she'd just cleaned. But it wasn't lemony or floral or even bleach. It was something sharper, unfamiliar. A smell that didn't belong in our house. Musky, expensive. Definitely cologne. I stood there for a second, trying to place it. Was it mine? No. I haven't worn cologne in months. Laura said she liked me better natural. Then I saw her coat, draped over the hook closest to the door. That wasn't right either. Laura was precise, type A to her core. She once reorganized our kitchen because the feng shui was disrupting her sleep. Her coat always went on the third hook from the left. I don't know why. She just liked it there. But that afternoon it was on the first hook. Not a big deal, right? Probably not. Still, it caught my eye. Laura? I called out, setting my keys down. No answer. I walked into the kitchen. Her laptop was open on the counter, screen still glowing. A half-empty glass of wine sat beside it. Red. She usually drank white during the week. Said it helped her sleep lighter. The kitchen smelled faintly of garlic and something smoky, like she had just finished cooking or burned something. The oven was off, the stove cold. She wasn't in the kitchen. Not in the living room either. Eventually, I found her in our bedroom, standing in front of the mirror, adjusting her hair. She looked surprised when she saw me in the reflection. "Oh, hey," she said. "You're home early." "Yeah," I replied. HVAC at the office went out. Everyone bailed. She smiled, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. "That's nice." I stepped into the room and kissed her on the cheek. She smelled like her usual perfume, something with vanilla and amber, but underneath it, faintly, was that same cologne from the hallway. I didn't say anything. Not yet. We chatted for a few minutes, light stuff, how her day went, how mine went, but something about her answers felt rehearsed, like she was reciting a script she'd written an hour ago. Then I remembered I had jumper cables in her car from last weekend. I needed them for tomorrow, so I asked if I could grab them. "Sure," she said, too quickly. "They're in the trunk." But when I went outside and opened the trunk, there were no jumper cables. They were in the back seat, and beside them, partially tucked under the passenger seat, was a business card. It wasn't a big-name place. A boutique restaurant, Italian, in a trendy part of town we almost never go to. Not because we couldn't, but because Laura always said it was too flashy and full of people who post their food instead of eating it. But the card was there, crisp, new, like someone had handed it to her that very day. I walked back inside, holding it in my hand. She was back in the kitchen now, scrolling through her phone. I held up the card. "What's this?" I asked casually. She barely glanced up. "What do you mean?" "This restaurant, I don't think I've heard of it." "You went there?" She blinked. "Oh yeah, it's for a client thing. I met up with Tasha there yesterday. You know, the branding project I told you about." She hadn't told me about a branding project. Or Tasha. And I've never known her to do client dinners on weekdays, at least not since she left her agency job and went freelance. She liked working from home. Said the whole point was to avoid suits and schmoozing. "You didn't mention it," I said, keeping my tone neutral. "God, Kurt," she sighed, setting her phone down a little too hard. "You're not going to do this again, are you?" "Do what?" "This. The oh, what's this, what's that, why didn't you tell me routine. You get this way every time you're tired or stressed. You start nitpicking every little thing like I'm on trial or something." I stared at her. It was just a client dinner, she continued. At a restaurant. That's literally it. I didn't mention it because it wasn't worth mentioning. You're reading into stuff again. I just asked a question. She laughed short, dry. Yeah, and I already know how this ends. You'll find a way to convince yourself something's wrong. You always do. You get like this when work's stressful. Paranoid. Suspicious. It's exhausting. The weirdest part? She wasn't defensive. Not like someone hiding something. She sounded annoyed, like I was the problem. Like she was the one being put through something unfair. It made me second-guess everything. Was I tired? Sure. Was work overwhelming lately? Yeah, definitely. Could I be overreacting? Maybe. But I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd walked into something half-cleaned. Like I showed up 10 minutes too soon and interrupted a version of the day I wasn't meant to see. Still, I let it go. Told myself I was being ridiculous. That I was projecting. But that night, when I lay in bed beside her, my mind wouldn't shut off. I thought about the smell, the coat hook, the wine glass, the business card, the restaurant she doesn't like, her tone when she dismissed me. Not with fear or guilt, but with frustration, like I'd ruined her groove. And maybe worst of all, how easily I accepted her answer. I didn't sleep much that night. I kept staring at the ceiling, wondering when I started letting myself ignore what I already knew. After that day, the coat, the card, the cologne, I tried to let it go. Tried. That's what people do in long-term relationships, right? You choose trust, even when your gut screams otherwise. You ignore the twitch in your chest and hope it's just the weather changing. You convince yourself that doubt is a sign of your own weakness, not a sign of reality knocking. But the thing about ignoring your instincts, it doesn't make them go away. They just get louder, more creative. They start stitching together threads you didn't even realize were hanging loose. Things I once brushed off started replaying in my head like scenes from a movie I'd seen 100 times. Only now, I noticed the details in the background. Like the calls. They used to happen maybe once or twice a week, a client needing a quote, a quick check-in. But now they came in late. Real late. 10:47 p.m. 11:15. One came in at 12:04 a.m. on a Tuesday. I remember because I heard the phone buzz under her pillow. She stirred, silenced it, then rolled over and muttered something about a time zone mix-up with a West Coast client. I nodded, half asleep, and forgot about it, until it happened again, and again, always after 10, always followed by her slipping out of bed and disappearing into the kitchen to finish up a message. Then there were the notifications, or rather, the sudden lack of them. Laura used to be one of those people whose phone was constantly lighting up. Instagram comments, Pinterest boards, group chats that never seemed to shut up. But recently, her phone had gone silent. Not off, not on Do Not Disturb, just quiet, too quiet. Once, while she was in the shower, a text popped up on her lock screen. No name, just a phone number, no photo, no contact saved. It said, "Here by 7. Bring the wine you like." I stared at it for maybe 5 seconds before it vanished. When she came out of the bathroom, I didn't say anything. I wanted to. God, I wanted to. But I knew what she'd say. I was being paranoid again. Projecting. Creating a fight out of thin air. I had started keeping score in my head. Not because I wanted to, but because something in me needed proof. I told myself I was building a case. That I wasn't crazy. That if it all came crashing down, I'd have receipts, even if only in my memory. And the list kept growing. The strategic dinners that always happened last minute. The new clothes. Nothing outrageous. Just different. More form-fitting. Hems an inch shorter than what she used to wear. Necklines that had crept lower one button at a time. The subtle shift in perfume, floral, but with something sharper underneath. And once, unmistakably, the scent of men's cologne on the driver's seat headrest. Her wedding ring, missing more and more often. When I asked, she said it didn't match the image she was trying to project for clients. "It makes me seem old-fashioned," she explained once, half laughing as she slipped it into her purse before a meeting. "People respond better when they think I'm young, independent. It's just business." just business. Everything was just business. Except I wasn't buying it anymore. Then came the moment that broke my trust in ways I didn't even understand at the time. We were supposed to have dinner together, just a casual Thursday night at home. I'd made pasta, her favorite. She texted at 5:40, saying she was running behind because of a client call. Fine. I waited. At 7:15, no update. I called straight to voicemail. Texted, no reply. At 8:06, she walked through the door. No explanation. No apology. Just a distracted, hey. She wasn't wearing the clothes she left in that morning. Different top, different shoes. Hair was pinned differently. She had changed somewhere. To someone's place? At a gym? At a boutique bathroom? I don't know. I never asked. I wish I had. But I was still trying to be the guy who trusted his wife. Everything okay? I asked. She smiled. The same kind of smile I imagine politicians wear when they're caught on a hot mic, of course. She said, just work. It always came back to that. Work, clients, strategy, branding. I used to admire how ambitious she was. It's one of the things that drew me to her in the first place. But now it felt like a convenient curtain, one I wasn't allowed to peek behind. That night, I lay awake for hours, staring at the ceiling while she slept soundly beside me. Or pretended to. I started remembering all the things I'd let go before. The way she had started keeping her laptop shut around me. How she'd hold her phone at angles that made it hard for me to see. The conversations that dropped to whispers when I walked into the room. The stories that didn't quite line up when she'd talk about her day. Names I'd never heard. Clients that couldn't be verified. Vague timelines that felt patchy. At one point, she said she was flying to Dallas for a conference. I offered to drop her at the airport. She told me not to. Said she had a car picking her up because she was running late. I let her go. But later, when I looked up the conference schedule online, I couldn't find her name anywhere. Her company wasn't even listed. I told myself I'd misheard. Maybe it was a different conference. Maybe she was just attending, not speaking. Maybe the site was outdated. I gave her the benefit of the doubt again. But that list in my head? It was growing longer and heavier. Even her laughter had changed. I know that sounds strange, maybe even dramatic, but it had. Laura used to laugh from her chest, loud and unfiltered. Lately, when something was funny, she'd let out this polished little breath, like she was trying not to show her teeth, like someone taught her how to perform joy instead of feel it. And the eye contact, she avoided it, especially during moments that used to be int**** mate. When we'd sit across from each other at dinner, her eyes would drift to her phone. When we'd talk in the living room, she'd glance past me, toward the hallway. Once, during a movie, I tried to hold her hand, and she pulled away, said she had a cramp. Maybe she did. Maybe. But in my gut, I knew. She was slipping away. The scariest part wasn't the idea that she was cheating. Not really. It was the realization that I'd already lost her, and had no idea when it happened. One night, I stood at the kitchen sink doing dishes while she was in the other room on a call. I couldn't hear the words, just her tone. Soft, teasing. Not like she talked to clients or coworkers. I dried my hands and stepped into the hallway, just in time to hear her say, "Okay, yeah. I miss you too." She paused, then laughed. "You're terrible." I stepped into the living room. She was facing the window back to me. When she heard my footsteps, she flinched, spun around too quickly. "Oh, hey," she said, lowering her phone. "Just wrapping up with Michelle." I didn't ask who Michelle was. I didn't say anything at all. I just nodded and went back to the kitchen. Later that night, I scrolled through her Instagram, looked at her recent follows. Nothing obvious. No new names I didn't recognize. I clicked on her tagged photos. Nothing suspicious. Nothing at all, really. Just curated emptiness. Every clue was so subtle, so quiet. No dramatic lipstick on the collar. No anonymous hotel charges. No lipstick-stained wine glasses in the back seat. Just 1,000 tiny changes that, together, formed a new version of her. A version I didn't recognize. I was losing her by inches. And worse, I wasn't sure she even noticed. Maybe she thought I didn't care. Or maybe she knew I did and just didn't mind hurting me. I couldn't tell which version was worse. What I do know is that the man I used to be, trusting, patient, naive, was fading, being replaced by someone else. Someone who watched, who waited, who took mental **ts of every small lie and filed them away like puzzle pieces he didn't know how to assemble yet. But I was close. I could feel it. I wasn't just suspicious anymore. I was sure. I just didn't know of what. Yet, a few days after the hallway incident, the coat, the card, the scent, I stopped trying to explain anything away. There was nothing left to excuse. I just hadn't said it out loud yet. And maybe I wasn't ready to. Maybe I still had that stupid thread of hope twisted around my spine, convincing me that this was just some massive misunderstanding. A bad season. A lapse. Something we could fix. That illusion shattered on a random Tuesday afternoon. I was on my way to my brother's place. He needed help fixing a leak in his garage, and I decided to swing by the old house we used to live in before the renovation. We kept some tools in the shed behind it, stuff too bulky to move until the final storage unit was set up. I hadn't been there in weeks. Laura hadn't been there in months. It was quiet when I pulled up. No sign of life. Just the wind brushing through dry branches and the soft groan of the porch steps under my weight. I unlocked the door, stepped into the musty hallway, and was hit with a strange déjà vu. This house still smelled like us. Back when things were simpler. Before strategy dinners and unreturned texts. I made my way into the kitchen, grabbed a flashlight from the drawer, and paused by the trash bin on instinct. It wasn't empty. That was odd. Nobody had been here recently, at least that's what I believed. But there it was, a new Starbucks cup, a fast food bag, a crushed protein bar wrapper, and a folded piece of paper. At first I didn't think much of it, until I realized the name scribbled on the bag was Laura's. Curious, I pulled out the paper. It was half wrinkled, like it had been stuffed away in a hurry. The fold had a crease like someone had opened and closed it repeatedly. I flattened it out on the dusty counter. It wasn't a receipt. It wasn't a note. It was a list. 2 columns. No title, no names, but I didn't need names. I knew immediately who was who. The left side was me. It had things like steady, predictable, long hours, safe, doesn't notice details, and still thinks I'm in love. The right side had things like exciting, spontaneous, makes me feel seen, keeps secrets, and asks nothing from me. My name wasn't on the page. Neither was his. But the message was louder than if she'd screamed it in my face. I stared at the words for a long time. It didn't feel like rage. It didn't feel like heartbreak, even. Felt cold. Like the kind of clarity that knocks the wind out of you, not because you didn't see it coming, but because now it was undeniable. She'd made her decision already. She'd done the math. Weighed the options. I was on one side of the ledger. He was on the other. No emotion, no explanation, just pros and cons. It wasn't just cheating anymore. It was replacement. She was planning a transition, not a betrayal. And I'd been the placeholder, the fallback, the safe bet she was slowly cashing out of. I should have walked out right then. Should have lit that paper on fire and never looked back. But I didn't. I folded it up, slid it into my back pocket, and stood in that empty kitchen for a long, long time. There's a moment in every breakup, I think, where you stop asking questions. Not because you have the answers, but because you finally understand the answers don't matter anymore. I hit that moment standing in the dark, with a crumpled page of my life dissected into bullet points. I walked through the rest of the house like a stranger visiting a museum of his own past. The walls still had tiny scuffs from moving furniture. The guest room still had Laura's old reading lamp. I even found one of her earrings behind the bathroom mirror, stuck in the corner of the drawer. Evidence of a life she had already emotionally abandoned. I didn't cry. That surprised me. But there was no space for sadness in my chest anymore. It was already filled with facts, with quiet fury, with a new kind of emptiness that didn't beg for comfort. Just answers. But none came. When I got home that night, Laura was already in bed, pretending to sleep, Her breathing had that artificial rhythm. If I hadn't known better, I would have thought she was just tired. But I did know better. I watched her in the dark and wondered if she knew. If she knew I knew. If she cared. The next morning, I didn't say a word about the paper. I wanted to see how long she'd pretend everything was fine. She kissed me on the cheek and told me to have a good one. I nodded, smiled, said, "You too." We both lied. That weekend, she said she was heading out of town for a last-minute branding retreat. She showed me a fake flyer on her phone, badly photoshopped, no event link, no official names. I just nodded again. I didn't ask where she was really going. I didn't need to. I already knew where she wasn't going, and that was back to me. At one point, I sat at the dining table with her phone in my hands. It was unlocked. She'd left it charging while she packed, and I just picked it up. I don't know what I expected. A confession? A photo? A thread of messages that would break me? But there was nothing. Everything had been wiped. Her texts only went back 2 days. No emails older than last week. Her search history was empty. She'd cleaned house. Digitally, emotionally, all of it. That's when I realized she wasn't afraid of being caught. She was finished. She was just waiting for me to catch up. And even though she hadn't said the words yet, she'd already said them. With her absence, her planning, her neat little list in the trash. This wasn't a spontaneous fling. It was an exit strategy. She'd been halfway out the door for months, and I'd been holding it open for her. It's a strange thing, to sit across from someone you love and know they've already stopped loving you back. Not loudly, not cruelly, but gradually, quietly, like a light dimming over time. You don't notice until the room is pitch black and you can't remember what it ever looked like fully lit. I started pulling away in little ways. I stopped asking how her day went. I stopped offering to drive her to her meetings. I stopped cooking her favorite meals. And she didn't notice. Or maybe she did and just didn't care. She came home late 3 nights in a row and never offered an explanation. I didn't ask. I didn't even look up from my laptop. She kissed me on the forehead like I was a roommate, not a husband, and went straight to the shower. Our house became quiet in a new way, not peaceful, hollow, like a stage set after the actors have all left. I waited for her to bring it up. She never did. So I started preparing. For what, I didn't know yet. But something in me clicked. The man who used to apologize first, who tried to fix everything, who forgave quickly, that man wasn't here anymore. I wasn't going to confront her. I was going to watch. And then, when the time came, I'd leave with nothing but the truth. No yelling, no begging, no deals. Just the paper in my pocket. The one that told me everything I ever needed to know. After I found the list, something inside me snapped into place. Not violently, not with rage or shouting or revenge fantasies. It was more like when a switch finally flips after months of flickering. A moment of stillness, where the noise in your head quiets, not because it goes away, but because you stop trying to argue with it. I knew she'd made her choice. What I didn't know was just how far ahead she'd planned, or how many people might have been involved. The warning came 2 nights later. I'd been crashing on the couch more often by then, pretending to fall asleep watching TV. Not because I had to. The bed was still technically mine. But I couldn't bring myself to lie next to her anymore. Not knowing what I knew. Not seeing her text someone with a smile. Then turning and asking me if I needed anything before bed. She thought I didn't see. She thought she was still pulling it off. She didn't know she was being watched by someone who had already let go. I was halfway through some late-night documentary when my phone rang. It was nearly midnight. Unknown number. I let it buzz twice, assuming it was spam before I answered. Not because I was curious. Just because I was tired of being afraid of unknowns. Hello. Silence. Then quiet breathing. I was about to hang up when a voice finally came through. A man. Soft-spoken, with a strange edge to his tone. Like he wasn't used to making calls like this. Kurt. I froze. Yeah. Who's this? I can't say, he said quickly. Just listen. Please. I sat up. If this is a joke. It's not. The voice sounded strained. Nervous. But not fake. I shouldn't even be calling, he continued. But you need to know. Laura, she's not just cheating. She's setting something up. My grip tightened on the phone. What are you talking about? I can't explain everything. But the guy you're thinking of, he's not the one. My heart thudded. You're watching the wrong person, the voice said. He's just there to keep you busy. She wants you looking left so you don't see what's happening on the right. I stood up, walked to the kitchen, closed the door behind me. Who are you? I don't matter, he said, rushed. Just know this. It's not just an affair. It's something else. Something planned. Legal, maybe. Financial. I don't know the full angle. But she's moving pieces behind your back. I leaned against the fridge, my chest tight. How do you know this? I used to know her, he said after a pause. Back before she changed her name. Before all this. That froze me. Changed her name. Silence. Then, I've said too much already. Just watch your back, Kurt. Watch what she's doing. And don't trust anyone close to her. Not even family. Click. The call ended. I stood there for a full minute, staring at the blank screen like it might give me answers. I didn't believe him, but I did not believe him either. That was the problem. There was just enough detail to make it feel real. Enough anxiety in his voice to suggest it wasn't some prank. And deep down, something in me already knew this went beyond a simple affair. It always had. The next morning, I told myself I imagined it. That the call was just some weird prank, maybe a telemarketer who got creative. But I started paying closer attention. Not just to Laura, but to the things around her. Her patterns. Her passwords. Her moods. I noticed she'd changed our shared account access. The budgeting app we both used suddenly had new categories. Labeled vaguely. Consulting. Transport. Logistics. None of which made sense for a freelance designer. I noticed she was locking her office door now. She'd never done that before. One day, I asked her when she'd be home. She hesitated before answering, like she had to calculate the response. Another time, she got a package delivered to her studio. Normally, everything came to the house. This one was marked personal. She wouldn't tell me what it was. It's a surprise, she said with a forced smile. You'll see soon. I wasn't sure if that was a threat or a promise. Then there were the calls. Always at strange hours. Always taken outside. Always ending in silence when I stepped into view. I remembered what the man had said. Don't trust anyone close to her. Not even family. That stuck with me more than it should have. Because Laura didn't have much family. She had one cousin she talked about all the time. Evan. The safe one. The one she said was more like a brother than anything else. The one who always showed up at birthdays and helped us move. The one I'd had beers with on our porch more than once, talking about sports and old movies. He was friendly, quiet, kept to himself. But something about that call made me see him differently. That night I went through our photo albums. Digital, of course. Laura curated them obsessively. Everything was labeled vacations, events, anniversaries. But Evan? He was barely in any of them, except one. A photo from 2 years ago, Laura's birthday. She and Evan were sitting on the hood of our car. It was dark, headlights off. They were holding wine glasses. She was laughing, leaning into him, not on him, not touching exactly, but close, too close. The thing that got me wasn't the way she smiled. It was the way he looked at her. I hadn't seen it before, but now it was obvious. Like he was memorizing her. Like he wasn't just looking, he was watching. I zoomed in. His hand was resting just behind her on the car hood. Not touching, but ready. That photo had a date tag. Same weekend she'd said she was away with girlfriends. So why had Evan been with her? And why had I never noticed before? I closed the laptop and stared at the wall for a long time. This wasn't paranoia anymore. It was a trail. And someone was trying to warn me before I followed it too far. But I was already too far in to turn back. After the warning call, I stopped trusting anything that looked obvious. The man I suspected, let's call him Nick, had been Laura's business connection. He wore tailored suits, used buzzwords like synergy and pipeline, and had popped up more than once in stories she told about client dinners and late pitches. For a while, I was convinced it was him. He fit the mold. He was the wrong kind of charming. But then came the envelope. It was a Tuesday, cold, gray. I was walking back to my car outside the hardware store when I noticed something tucked under the driver's side wiper. Plain envelope. No stamp. Just my name in block letters. Kurt. I looked around. No one. I opened it in the driver's seat. Inside was a single photo. It hit me harder than anything else had. There she was, Laura, sitting in the driver's seat of our car, parked on a quiet street. It was night, the image grainy, clearly taken from a distance. But clear enough. She wasn't alone. In the passenger seat sat a man in a hoodie, slouched, turned toward her. His face was mostly shadow, but one detail stood out. The torn sleeve. A frayed edge on the left arm, right near the elbow. I knew that hoodie. It belonged to Evan, Laura's safe cousin. The one who'd been around for years. The one she'd always insisted was like family. The blood drained from my face. This changed everything. I stared at the photo for minutes, turning it over, hoping for something else. An explanation, a note, a name. Nothing. Just the truth. I drove home in silence. The image burned into my mind. She had always told me Evan was harmless, reserved, loyal. She said he was one of the few people she truly trusted. When he helped us move, she hugged him longer than she hugged anyone. When I asked her once how they were related, she got oddly vague. Something about half-cousins and complicated family trees. I never pushed. Now I wished I had. At home, I pulled up every photo I could find of Evan. Facebook, Instagram, even old iCloud backups. Same hoodie, same tear, same closeness. It was all there, hiding in plain sight. But the photo in the envelope wasn't just evidence of infidelity. It was proof that I'd been looking in the wrong direction the whole time. While I'd been distracted by slick business cards and charming smiles, the real story had been unfolding right beside me. And someone else knew. That photo didn't come from Laura or Evan. It came from a third party, someone watching. Maybe the same person who made the call. The next day, I tested something. I brought up Evan in conversation casually. Mentioned I'd seen an old photo of us moving. Said he looked different now. Her reaction was too careful. She didn't look up from her coffee. Yeah, she said. He's been working out or something. I nodded. We should grab dinner with him sometime. Catch up. That made her blink. Just for a second. But I saw it. Oh, she said. He's been kind of off the grid lately. I don't think he's around. I checked Evan's location online the next day. He'd just checked in at a gym 5 minutes from our house. She was still protecting him. Still lying. I couldn't do anything with the photo, not yet. I needed more. The paper list. The warning call. Now the photo. Someone else had their eyes on this situation. Someone wanted me to know. I started thinking back to all the odd moments. The time Laura told me she was meeting Evan to help him with a family issue. I didn't think twice. The weekend she said she was at a conference but posted no photos. Evan posted a story from the same hotel lobby. The weird inside jokes. The late-night texts. The way she always said he was the only man she could truly relax around. And now it all clicked. I wasn't just being replaced. I'd been sidelined. She hadn't cheated on me with a fling. She'd chosen someone with history. Someone familiar. Someone I'd let into my home. I kept the photo in a locked drawer after that. Not because I needed it anymore, but because I knew what it meant. This wasn't about a one-time betrayal. This was a second life.